It's the ultimate raw vegan bundle. So we've been going live and I'm about to go live with Chris Kendall. We are going to talk about raw truths. First off, if you haven't checked out the bundle, there is 32 contributions, all brand new. There's recipes, there's courses. Check the link in my bio or Chris's bio. I will grab him now. And you writing this book. I find this book actually iconic. I'm very excited to talk about this. Hey!
Good evening.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well. I woke up a little early and went to the gym and had a sauna, and I'm back and rip roaring and ready to go.
Raw.
Can you
That's
believe
what we
it?
want, right? The power of raw. And us Leos,
Yeah.
raw.
Rah!
Oh, amazing. So I've been through your book, Raw Truths,
Oh,
and I absolutely adore it. And I think it
oh,
had to be said. And I think it's beautiful when someone's had 20 years experience. It's probably over 20 years now, isn't it?
celebrating my 21st year this year, Skye.
Yeah. I think that's the time you can stand there and you can speak these truths. So start with how your journey led to this book.
Oh gosh. Well, it truthfully goes pretty far back. It goes to the very, very beginning of my journey. I was just kind of thinking about this morning. And, I came into health through yoga first. It was out of a great need to calm my mind, to get out of a place of depression, to, overcome some issues like candida and jock itch and lethargy and all this kind of stuff. And I found yoga first, and then it kind of led me towards a more dietary driven approach because, yoga talks about food, it talks about karma, it talks about all these things. And I just thought this was a pleasure hole. I really, really did, right? But that just blew my mind. So, like, the myth of the general population and the standard American diet and that food doesn't really matter, which is often prevalent in kind of the medical model and stuff like that, which I won't say everyone, right? But a lot of people really say that, tout that, believe that, and I was just blown away, right? I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I've been so far off base and that people don't really get this. Um, so I started making changes. I started applying things. I started reading more, and everything led towards more and more raw foods. I was just pointing towards fruits and vegetables, and I kept researching that. The first big book I read was Fit for Life, which I still recommend to people. It points in the direction of a high fruit, raw food diet, but it's very soft. It recommends holistic lifestyle. It talks about food combining. It talks about eating fruit first on an empty stomach. Talks about high carbohydrate and really keeping fats and oils very low. Um, yeah, all of these things, they really took hold in me. And it was like, just seemed like very basic biological truths. It made sense on every single level. So I continued to apply this and I continued to learn more and more about raw food. But, this was that first book I read was in 1999. And there wasn't a ton of information about raw food at that time. I mean, and if there was, it wasn't in the major bookstores that I was looking at, or maybe I just didn't find it. It wasn't my time. I'm not too sure. But I wasn't finding a lot. And there's another book I found called The Sun Food Diet Success System. And there was a lot of good stuff in there. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But it didn't bring clarity. It talked about like a nutritional pyramid and it talked about like greens and fats and fruit, but it didn't really pin down how much of any of those to eat. It just said like those are the foundations, like eat, fat, fruit, and vegetables, right? And I kind of took that on, but at the same time, it being a very analytically minded person, like I really like to understand the groundwork and the underlying nutritional aspects. I was already a few years into reading, like about 3, 4 years of reading every nutritional book I possibly could. I wanted more detail, and no matter what I did, I still couldn't maintain an all raw diet. I just really couldn't maintain an all raw diet, and I was doing better and better. I was letting go of a lot of things. I was moving through a lot of the physical issues that were having a hard time. I had a lot more joy and lust for life. I felt more in line with my passion, and I think that's an important part. I've always been passion driven, and really all of this research started because I wanted to become a better skateboarder. I wanted to become a professional and recover faster. So I was willing to do absolutely anything. I was like just digging down that rabbit hole to further my passion.
Sure.
And, you know, the next book I read was Nature's First Law, and it was, the end of every chapter said, "Cooked food is poison. Cooked food is poison." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay, well, cooked food's poison. I really got to get rid of that," because I was, moving more and more towards high raw, which again, that Fit for Life book, it promotes that as a great lifestyle as well. Basically, moving more and more towards raw foods, but also placing high raw as a really great foundation as well. And more and more though, I want to go all raw. I really want to go all raw, and I just couldn't figure it out. And I ended up going to school for nutrition. Um, Halfway through that, I met Dr. Doug Graham, and he just blew my mind. He was just on stage, on fire. I've said many times before, maybe people take it woo woo, but I used to have a history of eating magic mushrooms and sitting in nature and seeing energy fields and auras around plants. Like, it just blew my mind. Meeting Doug on stage, I was meeting my destiny, is what I now believe. I was just like, he's been my biggest mentor through the years, and it's really cool to note that both him and the authors of Fit for Life, which was Harvey and Marilyn Diamond, had mentored under T.C. Fry, another pioneer of the raw food movement. So I didn't know that at this time, but really my two hugest influences rooted back to T.C. Fry and the raw food diet. And it just so happens that Dr. Graham really, really honed in on the raw food approach. Like, this is optimal. This is what we're shooting towards. This is what works best. Whereas Harvey and Marilyn, they had a lot of experience at that as well, but they really wanted to make it softer for a larger audience and meet more people where they're at. And I mean, they had crazy success. They sold millions of copies, translated into 60 some languages,
Wow.
probably still the most sold book on nutrition ever, or at least in the early 2000s, it definitely was. And anyways, this all to paint the picture that I came to what I saw as truth. Like, I met Doug and he was shining with light, and I was not on any substances. I was just like, holy crap, like something's going on here. I'd never seen that outside of those other experiences. And it just took my mind and my heart by storm. I was like, this is it. I'm going to follow this guy. So I hung out with him afterwards, and he simplified it so much. Like, we sat and talked for an hour. He was very free with his time. He was eating dinner after doing 3 lectures a day, and he was just eating a tub of
I remember
blueberries.
you
That was his dinner. Just
telling
like
me
he had a
this.
yeah, he had a
The
whole tray
blueberries.
of it.
Yeah.
Just a whole. He's like, I'm like, that's your dinner? He's like, it's blueberry season. He's like, the blueberries here are so good. We're in Vancouver, Canada, and he was just eating a tub of blueberries. And I told him about my goals, and he simplified it so dang much. And really the heart of kind of what he said was like, if you're an athlete, you need a lot of fuel. Like, you're not going to get by on just a little bit. You need a lot of fuel. And it's really hard to overeat on fruit. So if you're ever hungry, eat all the fruit you care for, like zero restriction. Better to eat a couple bites more. And if you don't feel like fruit, go for greens and eat as much as you want and just hit repeat as much as you want. And I was like clarity, like finally clarity. And we went more into it. He talked more about the science. This was the year before he dropped the 80-10-10
Yeah.
diet, which he'd been working on for 5 years. And he just brought so much. The next day I went 100% raw. And it was at that moment, I've said the story so many times, but it's still very profound to me, and it really shaped my path. The next morning I woke up and I felt like a different person. I just felt like a beam of light was on me, and there was so much clarity, so much forward moving direction. And I knew this is why I was here. I wanted to share this message. And it wasn't just raw food diet, it was the bigger picture of holistic health, but the simplicity and how nature comes in and how amazing it can feel to eat an all raw food diet. And again, before this, for 5 years, I'd been studying nutrition for me, for skateboarding. But at that moment, it kind of changed. And it was like my passion and my purpose, yeah, that's an amazing part of it. And I want to meet people with skateboarding and connect with people. And it's my favorite thing to do. I want to continue doing it, but I really want to further this because, again, I told you I was in school, but I didn't want to teach. I didn't have any ambition to use it as a career at all, nothing. And
Mm.
but that next morning I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like, I'm actually going to do this, right? And I met him and I
Yeah.
talked more. And I know this is kind of a long roundabout story, but it really led me to see myths in the movement, and my eyes opened up more because at that time, really, Doug was the only one, like, and I know that may be an exaggeration, but he was the only one I found, and definitely the only one that was really in a science-driven, concise, clear package, pointing the finger towards a fruit-based diet with clarity on why and why high fat doesn't work when virtually all the other teachers were preaching a high fat diet, and beyond that, I saw other leaders from some of the books I read that were really promoting things like superfoods. And I'm not saying like superfoods are bad and they shouldn't ever be a part of the diet or anything like that, but they were promoting them as better than, that like this should make up your diet. These are the most important foods. And by the way, I sell them, or a company I represent sells them. And that actually really, like, it got me. Like it actually pissed me off, I'll be
Yeah.
honest. And I even made a video about it where I was like, it wasn't actually an angry video, because something that has been a pattern for me is, before I come out with something, I want to internalize it. I want to live it. I want to research it inside and out and apply it, not just for a couple of weeks or months, often for years. Like, there are videos that I wait 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years before I feel comfortable and confident to come out with it and expose it. And that aspect about high fat, and that, it doesn't matter as long as you eat raw food. The aspect about like superfoods and supplements being a huge part of the diet, and fruits and vegetables, they're kind of the side thing that, yeah, of course, eat fruits and vegetables, but really this is where it's at. It made me feel like I even more so need to come out and share this message from the place of truth and experience, and really foster that experience and competence myself. And I mean, painting that picture, that actually took me, and I won't say that it was all altruistic or coming from that place that I was like, I really need to pin this down. There was procrastination there, Skye. There was definitely
Sure.
procrastination there. But it took me 4.5 years of applying the diet, mentoring under Doug, sometimes directly and sometimes just through his forum. At that time in 2004 through 2009, his forum was the only place I really found support, accuracy, and really good quality information on the raw food diet. And for people who don't know, it was a forum called Vegasource. And Doug would spend a couple hours a day for free on there answering anyone's questions. And for years, because he'd been doing it for years before I got into this, and he did it
Sure.
for years after I got into it, I spent hours a day just going through every single question, like going back into the history and looking at every single thing he said. I just wanted to soak it up like a sponge.
Yeah.
And I learned so much for him. But after 4.5 years of procrastinating and applying this lifestyle and having a couple sways, and having my fortitude and my whys tested, I came to a place where I couldn't deny it anymore. And because I had been doing it for such a long time, and because I feel like I had a really strong base with Dr. Graham's tutelage, it didn't take long. It took me like 3 days, once I really decided, to write my first two books and to start my website and to say, this is what I'm doing, and to share it out with the world, start writing blog posts. And I haven't looked back. It's been over 16 years now. I haven't had another job. That's all I did. I made very little for a few years. People would be scared to hear that I made less than 2 grand in my first year, maybe up to 3 the second year, and under 7 for at least the first 5, 6 years of doing this as a full-time business. But I've had a lot of support. I've had a lot of support from my family. They could see that I was just completely overtaken by passion, and that I was living my purpose. And so they've allowed me to slowly grow, and also the community has embraced me and helped me to slowly grow. Um, 1 second.
Go for it. You need to stay hydrated.
Absolutely, especially after the
Yeah,
sauna. Um,
especially.
but through that time, and for the first, I'd say, oh gosh, I don't know, I guess it's been quite a while, maybe 10 years of the diet, my definite focus has really been on promoting what works, promoting the tips and tricks that I feel have made a difference for me. Trying to go to events, create events, to go around and share what I've found really impactful, and to mix and mingles with other people who've been doing this for a long time or shorter time, people who have experience, who have learned things, compare notes. Um, to question things, and sometimes crap talk, like not in a negative way, but like different ideas and philosophies from the stance of like debunking it and figuring it out and understanding why people are drawn to it and why it can help short term, but not necessarily work long term. To see patterns, talking with people like Doug and Rick and Dina, Dr. Rick and Dina, and Don Bennett, and you know, legends in this game who've been walking this path for so much longer that all of us stand on the shoulders of, and they stand on the shoulders of other people, right?
Yeah.
And trying to draw out commonalities why people succeed or why people have a hard time, and like I said, though, my main aim, like I don't love controversy, I'll be honest. I'm naturally introverted. Like I said, when I got into this, I didn't really want to do anything like this because I didn't want eyes on me. Like I didn't mind eyes on me when I was skateboarding, but I was just focused on my own thing, doing my own thing. I wasn't standing up and saying stuff and declaring what I think is, optimal or this or that. But passion overrid that. And it was like, okay, if I'm given opportunities, then the world is pointing me in this direction. And I'm going to lead by spirit, that guidance, and I really enjoy doing that. That's what I really focus on, so I really try and focus on delicious recipes, clear cut information, focusing on positives, focusing on what I see works best,
Mm.
keeping people out of it, but not being afraid to talk about concepts if they come up,
Mm.
But over the years, I'll be honest, with the advent of social media and influencers, and sometimes people, like really loving that spotlight, and that's not a bad thing whatsoever. And I'm not actually trying to make a judgment call or even say that I clearly know the motivations of anyone. All I can say is, what I see out there.
Mm.
I've seen a lot of myths that even before I got into this are being perpetuated that were known to be debunked back then, but some people just haven't really outwardly spoken about them. Or there's also the sad reality that sometimes things that are so fantastical, that are very bold claims, or just charismatic people get the forefront of people's eyes and ears, and create that earworm that goes viral and creates virality. And I mean, with social media these days, virality is a big thing, and a lot of times, whether we're talking about thumbnails or titles or
Mm.
concepts, virality is at the forefront. Like the that is seen as a means for an end, and it's justified. Even if it's not accurate, as long as it gets more eyes because it gets people in a direction. And that's never really sat great with me. For me, like
Mm.
I've always wanted the message to be the absolute forefront, and I'd be content to reach less people as long as I feel really aligned and truthful. And that doesn't mean I'll never put out a YouTube title that's catchy or that
True.
has some controversy in it. I'm not saying that's bad either.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, for me, what my path has been, right?
Yeah.
And again, especially in the last handful of years, I've just seen that become more and more and more prevalent, to the point where it actually brought up in me those same irked feelings
Yeah.
that I had when I first started the diet. And like I said, for a long time, I didn't really feel that too much. I was just focused on what I'm doing and bringing that message out. And I felt much more at peace with it. That video I made about that fellow, which you can look up if anyone wants, it was a video of saying, like, I've let go of this. It's like everyone's on their path. That's what they felt compelled to teach. And it perked me to do what I'm doing. So I'm in gratitude for that, and that was like me letting go of it. But I'll admit it started to, maybe I felt a little bit burnt out in a way where, I've been sharing this information for a long period of time, and I'm a slow grower in many respects. And I had some, inside ego or personal stuff where I was just, like, come on, like, why don't people see this? Why don't people see this?
Yeah.
And it led me to want to even go deeper and deeper into these. And I've thought about this a long time. And it's another story of procrastination. My first really big expose, which I would say is on the angle more of being against something, although I don't really like to be against something. I just like to spell out the information of why something else is optimal, but it could be perceived as that, was debunking mucoid plaque, which is a huge one. It's a really huge one.
Yeah.
And it's something I've been casually studying and researching and talking to doctors and experts about for almost 20 years, like around 20 years too, because I early on, before even raw foods, it's been over 20 years, I met colon hydrotherapists and I learned about this concept. And I feel like I have a really strong BS meter or intuition or a clarity of analytical thought to look past what I read, really to like dig deep into it. And even from back then, I thought it was BS,
Yeah.
right? And some people might say, well, then that's a long-term bias. I don't think so. I think that's just a desire to really uncover and to go around every single angle, not just take what somebody says as gospel truth, but to really look at it from as many angles as humanly possible. And but all that to say, it still took me years and years of procrastination and building up that information. I had 3 solid years of procrastination, like where I literally was saying on videos and sometimes in comments, which I try not to do. I try not to comment on other people's stuff. You know,
Yeah.
like I like to just put out my information.
Yep.
But there have been a few occasions where there have been really popular videos or just videos that to me were so blatantly untrue that I felt like it was important to at least share some information below. And so I started poking the bear a teeny bit up to 3 years ago, just being like, well, this concept actually isn't accurate and it can harm people, and I'm planning on making a video about it. I said I'm planning on making a video about it over 3 years ago, and I did
Mm.
various interviews and learned more, procrastinated, and finally came out with it.
Yes.
And with this bundle, I actually had a different project planned, and it was a mini course and kind of like a starter kit kind of thing.
Sure.
And it has some tech on my website that is required to make it work how I want it to work. But that tech fell through. It's one of those things that like the company that puts out that is like, oh, next month we're going to be ready with this feature,
Yep.
and they've been saying that for about almost a year, but it was guaranteed it would be by a certain time, and anyways, it's taken longer, and I didn't want to launch it without it being complete because there's a pretty big part, and it was only really just over 3 weeks before the bundle where it was like that's not going to happen. Like I talked to my other tech who really like goes into this. I'm like, tell me the truth, because I've been waiting and I've been saying like, hey, is this going to happen, or do I need to redirect because I have like 3 weeks until this bundle starts, and I'm not going to feel good about being in the bundle without having my own resource as a co-creator.
Oh, yeah,
I just
of course.
I know I could do it, but I wouldn't feel great. I wouldn't feel great about it. And he's like, you know what, man, I'm sorry, but it's just not happening. And so seeing that, I put out that Mucoid plaque, and I have a laundry list of myths and kind of things that I've learned that I see as partial truths or misinformation or things that can really harm people, get them mixed up, make this path more perilous than it needs to be. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make a myths book. I'm going to put together the big ones that I still intend to make full comprehensive videos on and go deeper into, because I believe this information needs as much light and as much venues, as much platforms as humanly possible. So I want to, continue with that.
Mm.
But I just charge full in. Some of them already had some, what are they called? Frameworks for a video that I would create. And some of them have made little bits of blog posts. And I mean, there are 2 of the 10 myths that I have done videos on, and some of them I've touched on. But I just picked the 10 biggest ones, and I set to work, and I was like, all right, well, this is what I want to bring to the world right now to dispel this. And this actually, truthfully, I feel satiates my calling, as well as what I feel is the most important in the now, more so than the other mini course that I intended to create, which would have been very great. I still intend to put it out
Sure.
there, but there are some stuff like that, and I feel like this is it was just his time to come out. It was just really his time to come out. And um, yeah, it's just a passion of mine to try to share in a nutshell some of the biggest things that I've learned over the last 20 some years, and with the advantage of having like 40 plus years, 80 plus, hundreds of years, when I really couple all the information that I've gleaned from so many other kind, well well-educated, passionate doctors and experts and enthusiasts in this
Mm.
movement.
That's amazing. I feel like it's like the perfect timing. It felt like it was just meant to be. When I saw your book, I was like, it came out off the back of a good time, because when you released that mucoid plaque YouTube video, and I was
Yeah.
like, and you talk about a BS meter. I swear I have that too, and raw foods just heightens that.
Yeah.
Everything you said in that video is what I felt, but you put science behind it. I felt when I went on raw foods, my common sense, everything became very common sense like as
Yeah.
in like no auto, like my brain, studying science at university, there's no autopsies. The only people saying they have this stuff are all on protocols, except
Yeah.
for a couple. And then you even explained, you've still got like things inside of you. Plus, I know how if I've juiced and have any firm food, it's a cement mixer. Like
Yeah.
I literally, so it's like it just all made sense. But what I want to say is back to the beginning of your story. I think what gets hard for people is like, where you first awaken and realize that everything you'd learnt was all crap, as in like the Western medicine, you're like, my
Yeah.
diet is wrong, diet matters. Because this is my experience is I came into this and you're trying to find a foothold because your whole reality shatters.
Yeah.
And then I think a whole lot of people cling on to protocols and
Yeah.
superfoods because as you said, there's speakers about it, there's communities about it, there's
Yeah.
people in their face every day. But what I want people here to realize, now I've only been a coach for 3 years. Now you've been doing it 20 years, oh no, 16 years, is that right?
Coaching. Yeah. Yeah.
So I know how many people reach out to me daily that I don't even get to work with. And then there's ones that I work with
Yeah.
that have been hospitalized for this sort of thing, that are
Yeah.
near death because of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So when you put a video like that, you're trying to share information. And I've only done it 3 years. I can
Yeah.
only imagine with building clientele and being more popular and stuff, how many people you have to see faces every day or every week who have fallen for these myths.
Oh yeah.
And so of course it irks you. Like you then see you like, and these are for people who are like have already been sick and end up so unwell.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you held on to for 16 years here, like 20 years, 16 years. I think that's like a good thing. So I think it's like, do you want to talk a bit more on that? Because I know what I have seen, but when someone's reality is fractured and then these people latch on, but just people can end up really sick if their supplements, if their nutrient levels in blood tests aren't in check, and they can
Yeah.
get severe nerve damage. Or
Yeah.
if you keep pushing your body with juices and juices and putting things in, you can get, like, even though you're juicing, you get extremely dehydrated because everything, like, there's so many things. Do you want to touch on that kind of aspect of it?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, that's what's really brought the onus on me so much is consulting because I know I've consulted over 1,000 people for sure over the last 16 years. And, and I know, again, like talking with Doug, he's definitely consulted thousands of people. And
Yeah.
again, we share notes and, I won't say like it's every day we talk or anything like that, but we definitely have had lots of time to sit down and talk about these kinds of things. And there just are patterns that often come up. And you're so right that people come into this lifestyle, generally speaking, for a few reasons, and it may be because they're super athletic and they want the edge. It may be because they're hyper intelligent and they just find their way there from researching. They're just interested in research and the truth is too hard to ignore. Or they're extremely sick and they're desperate, or maybe a mix of
Yeah.
those, but those are like some really really big ones. And when people are really sick, or if people feel lost in life, which I think a lot of people do, they have lost the connection to self, they've lost the connection to nature,
Mm. Yeah.
purpose. They're desperate and they're more likely to fall for anything. And oftentimes the more fantastic, because again, when you start opening your eyes to this and you go, oh my gosh, I've been lied to,
Yeah.
you see conspiracy everywhere and you'll
Yeah.
fall for anything. And the more charismatic, the more sure and confident somebody is, the more likely you're going to be like, yes, of course. And if they look good, I mean, that's a great bonus. If they're
Yeah.
rocking a six pack, or they're, for a woman, they're like crazy thin and just look like perfect, whatever you want to
Yeah.
say, the social media kind of model. They're going to get so many freaking eyes, like insane. And people are just drawn to it like flies because they want that. They want it so freaking bad. And again, this isn't judgment, whatever. This is the world. This is how it works. And I understand. I mean, when your belief system's shaken and you've emptied your cup, you're ready to be filled up. And if that cup looks delicious and it sounds like it's exactly what you want, and it's like super fantastic, just like, oh my God, can you believe that we don't even need to eat cooked food and balanced meals aren't really a thing? Like foods are balanced, like, oh my gosh, like it can just lead people down rabbit holes.
Mm.
And having done this long term and talking with other long term coaches, when you see people run into issues, whether that's, like weight issues or emotional issues or eating disorders or, being hospitalized
Mm.
or, dying, which sadly, over 16 years, I have a handful of people seen, fall off the planet because of, the way they approach the lifestyles. Not always just diet. It's often about lifestyle and mindset and all these different things.
Mm.
When you see people do things they think are the best for them, but then lose their digestion and all of a sudden not be able to digest
Yeah.
fats and, feel like fats are bad and that whole foods are bad because they're just too heavy on their system and greens are bad. You shouldn't even eat them
Yeah.
because it slows down your detox. And, you know, I'll put quotes in there because it's not the truth, then it's hard to not want to talk on those things, and I, for the absolute most part, have for years and years, like well over a decade, kept those kinds of things to one-on-one conversations, because again, I don't love to be controversial, and I know the more controversial you are, the more negative energy you have towards you. And I'm a bit of an empath and sensitive. I think we're all empathic, but I think, the more you get into the raw food and the more you lighten your load, you remove layers of blinders and filters sometimes. And if you're like really focused in on awareness and all those things, sometimes other people's energies can be quite heavy, and there are of course ways to release yourself from that. I took a Reiki teacher training years and years back, and that actually helped me energetically in many ways. But I just couldn't really keep it there, with kind of going back to the main theme.
Mm.
But I've seen so many people hurt, and I've seen so many people so deeply ingrained in these philosophies that they aren't willing to let go, and at some point we all have to let go. It's like, you share, but if you're completely attached to the outcome of every single individual, well, you're going to be a miserable person. So I've had to learn, like, it's important to care, to help, to hold the hand of people who ask and are interested, but at the
Mm.
same time not try and force or, down talk or, you know provide or create any kind of semblance of guilt or shame around this whole topic as well, right? It's like everyone's on their own journey, and I want to try and clearly convey information and help people who are interested and open to it, while at the same time not shaking people down or shaking doors, and depleting myself. Because at the end of the day, my number one mission is to live and breathe this lifestyle so I can be an shining example, while at the same time helping people one on one and
Mm.
throughout what I'm doing to help dispel myths. And just, I want to make myself irrelevant, Skye. I'll
Mm.
be honest. I want this lifestyle to be so simple and apparent that everyone's just doing it. Doug said that before. He's like, I want to make the pie so big, like he's like, I just want to make the pie so big. I'm not here to make it, I, I I just want this to be so freaking easy and to put out so much information that if people want, they can learn every single thing that I could ever teach them from my content. But if they want that hands-on, one-on-one or group stuff, I have programs for that.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I'm
It's
saying?
so interesting. Yeah, 100%, because I'm exactly the same. Is I give away all my content, most of it for free. Yes, this bundle is like once a year.
Yeah.
Besides that, everything that I coach is for free. But if you want the support, if you want someone to put it together for you, then I'm the same as you. And then I think because we want people to, I think the more confidence you get in yourself and your education and your choices, the better you do on this lifestyle.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
not happening. And we're wanting people to, we don't want to be like, you need to buy this, you need to have this, you need to take this, you need to do this.
No.
We want to be like, we're just in the wings here and we can come in to support you when you need be. But then what's happening is other people who are constantly over sharing a lot more, selling a lot more, are the ones that they're seeing more. And I kind of felt that you then came in and you're like, it was like, I can't watch this anymore, you know. And as I
Yeah.
said, I know from just my experience of what that people very desperate have come to me after experiences that weren't good. But
Yeah.
the other thing I noticed on when you released the mucoid plaque video is how balanced your responses are. You know, you seem to, because people are commenting, right, and
Yeah.
you're coming back and you're explaining to them, you're not angry, you're not aggressive, you're not upset at them, you're just very matter of fact that you're not even like, I've done this for 20 years. You're just matter of fact if there's no evidence at this stage. And I think and I hope that this is the start of something um, even more empowering for people, because I do believe that the raw foods, as you said, they lighten the load. You see a lot more truth. And I want people, it seems like you do, Doug does, we all want people to gravitate towards what sits right. Because I think if you end up sitting in that space of doing a lot of things, you haven't lightened your load enough to kind of make those choices yourself. But I guess what I wanted to say is congratulations on you for putting out something so controversial but not making it controversial. Does that,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I mean, that's kind of coming back to like people versus topics. Like I think when you come from a place of grounded, well-researched, educated viewpoints on topics, and to discuss a topic, yeah, you got to point towards the things that are not true, right, that aren't accurate, but then provide an explanation of why and try and paint a picture and provide a path that helps people see the same things that you did, that helps them to make sense of it. Because maybe some people aren't as well read, or maybe some people don't have the same BS meter, or maybe some people, again, are just really focused on the shocking, like amazing things, and don't want to look into the background of the science and biology and physiology, or the nature approach, or maybe they haven't seen a couple hundred or more people try something and fail, because there are people that they never coach, but they promote stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you gain different insights when you work in the trenches with people and see what is working and what isn't working, right? And yeah, you're right. I couldn't stay silent anymore, and I mean that mucoid plaque video I think now has like 360 or
what
70
does it?
comments. Yeah, it's got lots of comments, and I really believe that language is incredibly powerful. Like I'm actually, it's kind of funny because I believe it was Dr. Graham who first perked me onto it. But it's kind of funny. I have a pattern in my life. When something comes up that feels like, wow, okay, this is something. When it comes up three times, it's like, okay, this is the time to really go into it. Like, and if I hear it once or twice, I might like research it on a surface level and get some knowledge about it. But when it really comes strong three times, it's like, okay, I'm digging into this. And one of those was nonviolent communication with Marshall Rosenberg. Rest in peace, amazing soul. Something that I'd recommend everyone check out. Another one, I might get the title or the author wrong, but Radical Forgiveness and Radical Honesty, and all these different books. But Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication. I think a lot of language is violent, and a lot of language with self is violent. And if we're speaking outwardly in a violent way, imagine what that person is saying to themselves, right? And I have empathy for that. I have compassion for that. And I'm not saying that I never speak negatively to myself, or that in private with a friend I don't get frustrated and say something that I would never want to say online. I think everyone does that on occasion.
Yeah,
I'm by no means a yogi sitting here in
yeah,
balance. I definitely don't want to ever present that. Like that's the goal, and that's where what I want to cultivate. But I also want to be real with who I am in the now, and we're all on our path, right?
yeah.
But I really think, and this could be a controversial topic, but I really think that this is a diet of compassion. That raw foods and veganism is a diet of compassion, and we're not living it to its fullest if we're not expressing compassion. We're not
100%.
employing the precepts that can give us the most benefit if we're not at least attempting to live from a place of compassion, empathy, connection, understanding. And I definitely understand you catch more flies with mango
I
rather
like
than vinegar.
that mango. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes, you
You know.
do. Yeah.
And while sure, I've gotten some comments where I twitched a little bit, and as like my immediate urge is to respond in a fast, aggressive, emotional way. But I also know that if I sit with it and I breathe and I think more where they're coming from and I have empathy from that perspective and recognize I'm much less likely to change a mind by hammering with a hammer on someone's head and telling them why they're wrong and stuff like that, that having a more grounded, compassionate approach, understanding that I was at a place where I growled at my sister like I was a T-Rex and ate meat in front of her when she went vegetarian because I thought she was stupid, you know?
Wow.
So everything has its time, you know,
Wow.
and everyone's on their journey. And I want to meet people where they're at to the best of my ability, dependent upon the situation. You know, maybe someone will catch me on a bad day and I'll be a little more aggressive, you know. But especially under, you know, under my videos, I don't want to. Like I look at some other videos and you see people just spout hate and anger and judgment, and to me that doesn't serve the community or the person on the receiving or on the giving end
All the
in the best way
planet, all
possible,
the
or the
vibrational
planet.
energy of the planet, right? It's not serving at
No,
all.
no, exactly. And again, like another controversial topic, like, you know, veganism, to me, again, it's about compassion for self, and I think
Yes.
the highest values of that is eating in a way that is healthful for yourself. And like, you know, like if you're eating a vegan diet but you're harming yourself, where is that energy coming from? Like you're not important. Like, and I understand there's much more minutia to it. It's not completely black and white by any means. There's, you know, reasons for celebration. There's, you know, emotional ramifications and ingrained habits and stuff that can be really, really hard to break. But moving in that direction of learning to treat oneself and one
Yeah.
another with, you know, with the compassion and the understanding that is really going to help both and everyone rise up is something that I is the forefront, and it's something that I try to be present and with, you know, as much as I humanly can.
I haven't heard anybody say how. So when I healed myself and I could barely like read and write. So it was just my inner voice. And I started to eat this way and I felt this love for myself and this love for the plants. Now I had been cooked vegan, but
Yeah,
I was half dead,
yeah,
using medication, addicted to things, spitting hate at myself,
yeah,
yelling at other people, disconnected from my family, but I wouldn't eat an animal, right?
yeah,
But once I went raw,
yeah,
this inner voice was really kind and sweet. And as I loved me, I could touch the like tickle a butterfly, and I could sit and like look at the caterpillar move, and then I could read because I was loving me. I could finally reconnect with my family. And so
yeah.
when people talk about veganism and they're like, you know, I eat all this crappy food not because I want to, but so it doesn't harm the animals. I'm like, well, at the end of the day, the animals don't want you hurt. You
No,
know, it's if you can. I couldn't true like I was vegan for 2 years. It's not the same as when I loved me, that the love I can pour to an animal, that I can pour to Mother Earth, that I can pour to all my decisions, that I can pour into my family. So I love hearing that because I think like that's, yeah, that's, it's nice. It's really nice to hear because you hear a lot of people can be like really strong-willed, and of course it's for the animals, but for me, veganism is I'm an animal,
yeah,
and everything
yeah.
kind of.
What about
Is
us?
it?
And what about each
What am I
other? Like,
supposed to
I,
ride myself off and keep everything else alive? And nobody wants
yeah.
that.
No, exactly. Like, exactly, 1,000%. I just, to me, veganism, by definition, is about compassion. You know,
Yeah.
and compassion for all living
Yes.
beings, including one another, no matter what person's choice is. And that's why, like, if someone's making a choice that doesn't align with my values, that doesn't mean that I want to judge them and think that they're bad and hammer them on the head about how bad it is. I want to take them by the hand and share some insights and some of my journey if they're interested in it, to help them maybe see a different picture, to come from that place of compassion. And it's not only is it easier on your soul, but it passes that on as well, right?
Yeah.
It makes it just more clear. And you couldn't be more right too about feeding yourself love. I mean, and that's a really big part of my journey as well, and something that I try to really impress upon people as well, that food is Mother Nature's love, and oftentimes we come from a place of not loving ourselves, but and maybe we're speaking hate, maybe we're thinking hate, and we're feeding ourselves hate, right? And
Right.
it can be really hard to change that. And they say that what we say is the product of 1,000 thoughts, and what we think is a product of 1,000 actions, and
Mm.
it can be tough to change that around. But what I've found the absolute easiest is to start at that very base, start at that very base and actually feed ourselves love. And again, fruit is like, I look at it as like it's sunlight, it's
Yeah, that's
water, it's
yeah.
earth, it's air, it's all the elements, it's all of nature, it's all of life, it's all of love. And when we feed ourselves that continually, and we become more consistent with it being a regular part of a lifestyle, not just diet, we can't help but start to feel loving towards ourselves. We can't help to start to feel and think loving thoughts. And eventually that comes into what we bring out into the world and what we speak and what we share, right?
Yeah,
Um,
100%. I feel like if when I like now when I healed myself, always, if you get me with fruit and my butt outdoors as much as I can, it's just this like synergy
yeah,
that allows me to, like, it's like you can feel the cells of your body vibrate with Mother Nature. We are
yeah,
nature, and you can
yeah,
feel that love. It's like coming home, like it was always there, but sometimes we get indoors a lot and we're not eating the best, and then we're disconnected. Before we know it, we're spitting hate. And I always know to get my butt outside and make sure I have the most simple foods, and that's where I start. Like, and it,
yeah.
it helps me every time. And it's like a really simple thing, but it's amazing.
It,
It's amazing. It
it's
does.
life. It's really life changing. I used to do a talk called "Are You an Angry Vegan?" And I feel like it's a fun one to come out with again. Maybe I don't think I've really made a full video on it, but I've done it as a talk in a few different formats. And I think there's a lot of reasons to be an angry vegan, kind of like with the raw food, when your eyes open to the cruelty out there, and
Yeah.
how callous, or far removed people are from the plight of the animals, and how we place ourselves above and separate and label them, like they aren't animals anymore, they're meat, it's like, I understand. I absolutely understand. And I think that's a big part of people's process. And unfortunately, too, or fortunately, I guess you could look at it either way, angry people sometimes come to the raw food diet or the vegan diet and find a new thing to be angry about, and it becomes their
Yeah.
identity, you know? And I think that can be a very important part of anyone's journey. And some people decide to stay stuck in that for the rest of their lives, but it's not to their benefit, at
No.
least not at the highest level, And so the premise of that talk too is just that's an important thing, and to look into. But we can transform that anger into passion. We can transform that anger into empathy. We can transform that anger into wanting to clearly convey and impress upon people and wake up hearts in a way that isn't combative or angry. And again, I think everything has its place. And the way that people promote veganism, I think it's all perfect because it meets people where they're at and it opens up people. And some people need that shock value, and some people need to be questioned in order to come to understandings, whereas others, they come to understandings in different ways. But
Mm.
what I know for the evolution of the individual, coming to a deeper seat of compassion and working through that is only going to be better for their evolution into a more loving, compassionate, lighter, happier, healthier person, right?
100%.
And and that's again, that's everyone's individual journey, but I just think that's a profound part of veganism and raw food to make it not only be individual, for that energy to spread and to make it even more so we're, not really necessary, or what I said, irrelevant, because it's what people are doing and feeling and knowing, rather than battling against and confused about.
100%. What I did notice about like eating the raw foods and the self-love and the being out in nature is when I would try and have cooked food again and I'd be indoors more, or maybe I went back to a coffee or an alcohol, is not just in that, but that hurts us physically, but how much thoughts hurt us physically, but we don't feel it until raw foods makes you feel everything. And then all of a sudden I realize I'm sitting out in the sun eating my salad about 3 months in, very clean raw diet, and I'm like, nothing hurts. Like, not only have I overcome all this disease, but like
Yeah.
thoughts hurt. Like, and
Yeah.
so what you don't realize until you find a way to do the love and have love through food and love through nature is my whole life, all that like, Skye, you look like crap, Skye, you can do better, oh, I can't be bothered doing that today. It physically hurts us, right?
Yeah. Oh, huge. Absolutely huge.
I never knew.
Yeah. Most people, I believe, don't really, really know. Like, there's a difference between like surface understanding and living it to a degree where you really know. Like, it's an unshakable truth. It just resonates on every single level of your being. I don't really think a lot of people truly, truly know how powerful creators they are. That they truly are creators of their life. And until you take complete radical, what's the right word? Complete radical ownership of yourself and what you're creating in this world and in your life, you're more than likely going to fall victim to your own victimhood, you know?
Some
And
very, very, very wise words there.
it's a sad reality, but it's also the truth of living. And I think it's the purpose in some ways, at least in my mind, one of the purposes of that gradual awakening and letting go and recognition that it is actually pretty easy if you're present and in the moment and not in the past about fears or things you feel like you've done wrong with guilt and shame, or in the future with aspiration and feeling that right now isn't enough. And if you're just really embedded in the moment and present and coming from a place of heart rather than mind, trying to be correct or fixing or better than, it makes it so much easier and so much better. But with the dance of life, we come into that and we fall out of it, and we come into that and we fall out of it. And maybe those stretches get longer, and maybe for a period of time we forget them. But I think it's a universal truth that can have as much or more profound impact than anything else, because it ties everything together, right? And I hesitate to say that because I think everyone, whether they're like, let's say they're a yogi, or whether a raw foodist, or they're a triathlete, they want to say this thing is the most important thing, when in reality it's all of them together, right? It's all of them together,
Yeah.
but all of them strengthen each other, and all of them make it easier. And something that I find really profound with the raw food diet is that people are so far off base with diet, and diet vastly impacts everything so freaking much. Like, it, we were talking about the mind body connection, and like it changes, like microbiome and your thoughts. And again, you're feeding yourself God's, Mother Nature's love. Like, it's just so profound that it opens up avenues to everything else. But it is just a whole package, and it can get easier if we make it easier on ourselves, and we give ourselves grace, we give ourselves patience, we give ourselves forgiveness, we treat ourselves like our best friend or like a little
Yeah.
child that's just learning.
Yeah.
And and we just take that time and allow ourselves the journey, but also call into repetition that practice of just coming back to what is the only thing that is right now, and what we're feeling, and can we accept it, can we grow through it, can we love it.
Yeah. I love that. And would you say if people are struggling with finding themselves and loving themselves, that food is the best place to start?
I think it's a very big place to start. And also another thing I think can be talking to people, whether that's friends, family, if you're religious, somebody in that scene, whatever it is, like just talking to somebody, because oftentimes the things we think aren't true, and we don't recognize it until we speak them out loud and have a conversation with someone about them.
Mm.
So I think that's also a great place. But yeah, whether it's, I would say whatever is really pulling you at the moment, whichever is like making you excited at the moment, whatever is creating some semblance of a spark of life within you, whether that's activity, whether that's nature, whether that's philosophy, whether that's therapy, whether that's diet. I would start there and then, dive into that, enjoy it. A lot of times we need to obsess about something in order to let it go. And all the things I mentioned are things worth obsessing about for a time until we can let it go and grow to the next passion and the next thing that lights us up and sparks us. Because it's a bit of a dance, and all those things in their time and balance. But I would start there. And I mean, it doesn't hurt to, just start eating some more fruit. And I mean, fruit's delicious and tastes amazing. So incorporating more fruits and some veggies, and, going through the ultimate raw vegan bundle, and
That's right.
shameless plug, shameless plug, going,
Well, look,
going into
guys,
the
it's only
bundle.
up for a few more days and then it's gone. Like, well,
Yeah.
it's not gone, but it's
Yeah,
then expensive. It's off with each of the creators. So it's and that's
exactly.
the whole package in itself. To be honest,
Yeah.
is when you go in there. That's what always blows my mind is when people like I wouldn't eat a raw vegan diet or I wouldn't be a raw vegan. Each of us is so different. People think we're really the same, but I mean, even you get all of us and say each of you write a book, you would think one of them would be similar as another. No, they're
No,
all
no.
courses. There's different people from different perspectives. There's raw truths. I've got dinners. You've got Lisa with sushi. It's amazing. It shows that variety of humans.
Exactly. It's perfect. It can meet people where they're at with what they're looking for, with what they're needing, and I think it covers, the physical, mental,
I
emotional
agree.
really, really well. And that helps, you to connect deeper with spirit, right? So it's a whole encompassing, holistic raw food. It's not just raw food diet. It's about the lifestyle, and I like, we were just talking about creators, and it's creators coming together to share their wisdom, their gifts, their passion and their purpose, and to grow together. So it's a beautiful thing.
That's right. Well, this has been wonderful. It's
Mhm.
always I don't know who I was talking to. Maybe it was on my live. I was saying how I always feel like I get in these deep emotional talks with you, and I really appreciate it. And then we get to share it with people. So
It's the
it's
best.
been
It's the
amazing.
best.
So
Yeah, you
thank
you bring it out in me, Skye. You shine bright, and I love you and your story. And just thanks.
and you too. And so, everybody, if you want to get the bundle, check Chris's bio, my bio. Make sure you check it out because there's only a few more days. And thank you.
Such a pleasure, Skye. Such a pleasure. Yeah, you're right. We only have a few more days. It's what, Thursday now? Yeah. So
Yeah,
we got 3 full days after today, depending upon where in the world you are. And like you said, it's not gone forever, but it is gone forever in the sense of coming together in a bundle for a really low price. Afterwards, everyone's releasing their own books and courses on
yeah,
their own platforms for their full regular price. And right now you can get all of them for the price of any 1 to 3, depending upon which ones you pick. So
that's
it's
right.
an amazing opportunity to connect with so many people and get that individual support. And that's one thing too, is like with so many creators that are part of this, you may read some books and be like, you know what, I really connect with Skye. Like her vibe and her energy is just like exact, and like her story, like it just hits me. This is who I want to connect with. And there are so many people they're putting themselves out there, and they're so passionate about this that it's changed their life that they want to help you too, right? So it's an opportunity
Yeah,
to grow the community and just connect with like-minded people and make this reality where again this is just the norm. It's we
that,
can be on the forefront, and this is a good way to be on that wave.
that's right. Well said. So thanks again, and thanks everybody for joining. Bye.
Thank you so much, Skye. See you, everyone.
Oh, also, I didn't see your cat tonight.
I know Snooze.
No,
Where is
I
Snoo?
didn't see
Do you
Snoo.
want me to get Snoo? I
Yes,
see her. She's
I
under the covers.
do.
We'll get Snoo. Snoo. She was just snoozing. Oh, Snoo. Oh. Oh, she's a good snooze. She was just snoozing under my
She's a
lion
good
blanket.
snooze. She's snoozing.
She was
Hey, Snooze.
snoozing under the lion blanket.
Ah, you had to make an appearance.
Yeah, she's so good.
Well, you guys enjoy your day over there.
We will absolutely. You two have a great night, and thank you again,
I
Skye.
will.
Are you all right with me sharing this on my YouTube?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Share away. I'll be
Okay.
sharing too. So, bye, guys.
Perfect. Goodbye.